Today we are talking camera rigs, specifically this camera rig that I built for my Pocket 4K. I hope to not only show you exactly how I built this rig, but also the reasoning behind why I put what where, and hopefully that will help you make a rig that is most suited for your own personal needs. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment and thank Kondor Blue, who supplied most of the parts for this rig. They're a company that makes premium rig accessories for not only the Pocket 4K, but also many other mirrorless cameras. I left a link down in the description to their website, as well as links to every single part I used in this rig. Now, before we actually jump into building the rig itself, I'd like to take a quick moment to talk about the purposes of a rig. As fun as they are to build and as cool as they make your camera look, the main purpose of a rig should be ease of use. Your rig should either allow you to get shots you couldn't get before or make it easier to get the shots that you already can. You also want to keep in mind what you're going to be using the rig for. For instance, a rig I build for a YouTube studio will be vastly different than a rig I build for a run and gun music video shoot. So before building your rig, you want to ask yourself, what are you going to be using it for? And then all of your decisions afterwards should be influenced by whatever you're filming. For this rig, I decided to create something that would work well for filming a music video. So most music videos that I film, I want to be able to easily use it on a tripod, but also quickly remove it and go handheld if need be. Alright, to start things off, we have, of course, the Pocket 4K itself with the Kondor Blue half cage mounted onto it. Now, Kondor Blue does make a full cage version, but I much prefer the half cage because it leaves the right side where you have all your controls open, so the cage isn't in the way of you hitting your ISO, shutter, white balance, all that good stuff. I've also cut off all the little rubber covers of my ports, simply because once you put a cage on here, they really get in the way. I did keep them, however, and put them in a little baggie that I keep in my camera case, so if I ever need to do more long-term storage with my Pocket 4K, I can still keep dust out of the ports. The lens that I'm using is the Lumix 14-140 for micro four thirds. I really like this lens because of the insane zoom range on it. 14-140 is the equivalent of a 28-280 millimeter on a full frame, and it has an extremely smooth focus pull. It is, I believe, focused by wire, which is kind of unfortunate, but I haven't really had any problems with it. It's definitely not as direct as, a mechanical focus, but it perfectly works for my needs. For a base plate, I am using the SmallRig dual 15mm rod base plate with two 6" rods installed, and I attach that to the 1/4" thread on the bottom of the cage. Now, I'm actually only going to be using one of these 15mm rods, but I have them both installed just to give it some extra stability when it's sitting on a flat surface. Alright, and next is the top handle, also by Kondor Blue, and that just slides super easily onto the NATO rail, just like that, and then you can tighten it down. Using a top handle really helps when you're going handheld because it sort of helps all the weight of the camera to sort of stabilize itself, rather than doing this, which introduces a lot more shake when you move. Alright, next let's go ahead and talk about powering the Pocket 4K. I've chosen to go with NPF Sony batteries, mainly because they're cheap and they're large enough to power the Pocket 4K for several hours. The way we're going to mount it on the camera is with this NPF to Blackmagic Pocket Power Cable plate. It has a 1/4" bolt, which I attach to a little swivel head, which I then attach to a Kondor Blue quick release plate. Now, the way these quick release plates work is pretty cool. You basically just have one end that goes on whatever you're attaching to the camera, and the other end attaches to the cage itself, and whenever you want to attach it, you just slip it in and then lock it in, and it's very, very solid, but also super fast to detach things, so I highly recommend you get a couple of these. So I'm going to go ahead and put one of these on the back of the SmallRig Baseplate. Now we can very quickly attach the battery plate, plug the cable into the camera, and go ahead and slide the battery into place. Now you could of course have rails coming out even further and attach the battery to those, but I really didn't want any more rails coming out further behind my camera, and I wanted to really quickly be able to detach this from the camera if I just want to power it directly from the wall. Also, there are several reasons why I would highly recommend you use the power input to power the Pocket 4K rather than using a dummy battery. The main reason being because this setup allows me to hot swap batteries, so I can have the camera running off the NPF battery, but then if it's getting low, I can remove it, go grab another one, and the camera stays on running off the internal battery, and it can do that for another 20 minutes or so, and that will allow me time to go grab a new battery, put it back in, and I can continue recording. And then below this SmallRig base plate, I'm going to add the quick release plate for my tripod. Okay, next up we're going to go ahead and add a follow focus. Now, a follow focus isn't required for a camera rig, but I find it's a lot easier to pull focus when you're using a follow focus. They are a lot of fun, and while they can get absurdly expensive, this one was actually only $33. $50. I learned about it by watching a video by Caleb Pike over at DSLR Video Shooter. I left a link in the description where you can check out his review of it, so I'm not going to talk super long about it. All I can say is that I agree with everything in his video, and that I definitely would recommend it as a super cheap budget option for a follow focus. It only has one attachment point, which I actually like because it makes it super easy to align with your lens. So you can just go ahead and put it on that rail and then position it into place, push it against your lens, and tighten it down. It did come with a one-size-fits-all gear to attach to your lens, but I actually 3D printed my own custom ring for this lens, which worked way better than the one included. I also left a link in the description where you can go to the Thingiverse page for this and customize it to fit your particular lens. I did actually end up using the included gear though, and I attached it instead to my zoom ring and used the knob as a sort of lever to adjust my zoom, and that actually works surprisingly well. So when I'm sitting there pulling focus, I can reach my thumb over and adjust the zoom very quickly and easily. So that's just a little tip there. It actually worked way better than expected. Now you might be noticing something missing from this rig, and that is a monitor. For a monitor, I used this 7-inch monitor by Lilliput. It's a really budget monitor, and so far I've been really enjoying it. I do have a lot of thoughts about it, so I am planning on making a full review about this. But long story short, it's actually pretty good for the money. Attached to it, I have a magic arm going on to another quick release plate, the other side of which I attach just to the left of my top handle. This way I can very easily slide it into place, lock it down, and then plug it into my camera via HDMI. The HDMI cable I'm using right now is one by Kondor Blue, and it's really nice, very high quality, except it is just far too short. It works with this particular setup, but if I wanted to have the monitor mounted really anywhere else on the camera, it just wouldn't reach. Now, this is a fairly large 7-inch monitor, so you may not have as much trouble with a 5-inch monitor because that's gonna be a lot, closer down to the ports on the camera. But still, just Kondor Blue, please make a longer version of this cable. I also have another NPF battery mounted on the back of the monitor for power, but you can also use an LPE6 battery with this as well as a DC in. The DC in doesn't need to be 12 volts though, so you unfortunately aren't gonna be power it off of the exact plate that I use, but if you're using, say, a V-mount battery that has another 12 volt out, you could totally power it off of that. This magic arm is also really nice too. I have it mounted on there so I can really just position it anywhere I need to depending on what angle I'm filming at. But I usually just have it situated right above my top handle so that when I'm holding about chest level, I can still see everything I need to. And that is all I have on my run and gun style rig for the Pocket 4K. Let me know what you guys think of it down in the comments below, as well as what type of shooting you personally use your Pocket 4K for. Every shooting style is going to have different requirements for a rig. The main thing to keep in mind is that you don't want your rig to ever get in the way of you getting your shots. Instead, you want it to be something that helps you get those shots quicker, faster, and easier. Also, let me know any questions you have about any of the parts I used in this video. I'll be hanging out down in the comments and be happy to answer any of your questions. Stay tuned for more camera rig videos. I have another one coming out pretty soon about a shoulder rig for the Pocket 4K, as well as a review of this monitor, so stick around for that. I'm Josiah. Thanks for watching.
Hungry, I move with a passion. Elegance all in my fashion. Effortless, I be smashing. Making my diamonds, they dancing. Want me to check out deposit. Cash out whenever I cash in. There ain't no pressure, believe me. I'm about to make it look easy.